I'm Ricardo from Wrecking Ball Media, and I recently caught up with the Stranglers bass player JJ Burnel. Now, when I've got him on the line, he immediately saw the Motorhead poster. Where is it? Over there, right above my head, and launched into a story about Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead. And before I got to introduce him, so I don't get to introduce him anywhere in this chat, so I thought I'd do this. Here is my chat with the legendary JJ Burnel of the Stranglers.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
All right. I see you've got a Motorhead poster behind you.
Yeah, it's one of the later ones. What was that?
Yeah, Lemmy was a bit of a mate.
Oh, was he? Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I've met him so many times, way back in '77.
I was going to say,
He,
yeah, was that the
I
Hawkwind
was,
days for him?
sorry?
That would have been the Hawkwind days for him, wouldn't it?
No, he just finished.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he just started Motorhead, but he was a good friend of my flatmate Wilco Johnson,
Hmm.
who was a guitarist in a band called Dr. Feelgood.
Yeah.
And I shared a flat with him. And one night at 3 in the morning, I'm all alone in the flat. There's a knock on the door. I answer it. It's Lemmy going, can I sit down for a minute? I'll let myself out. I said, yeah, okay, mate. Not knowing what that was all about at the time. If you
uh,
see what I mean.
I see what you mean. Yes, I see what you mean. That's hilarious.
And
Now, JJ, you're obviously coming here in March, so you're
looking
not too
forward
far
to it.
away. Yeah,
Yeah.
50th anniversary tour. I was reading that you guys announced you were doing a farewell tour in 2021. It's been a fucking long tour.
No, no. No, what we announced at the time was we weren't going to do the full final long tour because some of these tours have been really long, and I wanted to slow that down, but not stop completely. No,
Mm.
not
Yeah,
until I've still got some breath in my body, some blood coursing through my veins.
yeah, yeah. Well, I
And there's
mean,
also worldwide demand, so that's great. When you're a musician, that's all you want. You want people to want to see you.
yeah, and I think it's you're in that category, and that vintage, if you want,
Yeah.
where it's still about the music. I was reading an interview with the singer from Lamb of God just today, and he said, like, he said, no, we're not touring as to be musicians. He said we're touring because we're a fucking black t-shirt salesman. Like he said, that's what's paying for the music. That's what's paying for
Oh,
the tour.
right. Well, that's kind of the tail wagging the dog rather than the
Mm.
dog wagging the tail. Fortunately, in this band, the dog is still wagging the tail.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I mean. It's like you're going to you're going to play these shows, and you're driving that demand, and people want to come and they want to see the shows, they want to hear the songs. They're not just turning up to get the merch and fuck off out the door.
No, 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 no.
Yeah, superb, man, superb. I mean, 50 years of doing it. I think you're the same vintage as my dad, 72, and mate, you don't look a day over 60. You're still going strong. I mean, you. I know you're big into your martial arts as well. You're a seventh dan in Shotokan karate, is that right?
No, Shidokan karate. It's
Shotokan, sorry.
full contact. Yeah, knockdown karate, like Kyokushin.
Yeah, right. And how's that, do you think? I mean, when you look at guys that you came through the scene with now at your age, at this time of life, how do you think that's kept you going and compared to some others, for example?
Well, it's certainly it's forced me to stay relatively fit, physically fit, because if I'm not, I'll get beaten up by my students.
Yeah.
So that's kind of gives you a grounding,
Mm.
but doesn't mean that you don't enjoy a drink or two,
It's, mate,
whatever.
motion is lotion, as they say, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. How did you come to discover a love for martial arts?
Um, growing up as a French boy in the UK,
Mm,
in London, um, you had to pick on someone slightly different. So it was either fight or fly, I think. And so I was fighting my corner quite earlier on. And then at school, I went to a pretty good school in the UK, and I was still French. I was still a frog then. So got into boxing there. And then when I went to university, it was just about the same. It was the fashion really, because there was Bruce Lee and all that stuff coming out, martial arts. So I joined the university Taekwondo club, and then when I left university, I joined a Kyokushin club, which was the ultimate full contact karate. And so just I've carried on that route ever since. So it's been 50 odd years of training, and now I've got my own club in London, and I used to compete. Had my ribs broken, have most of my body broken at some point. But I'm glad I've found something like that, because I don't have religion. So
yeah.
I have, there's a certain code with martial arts that you try to follow. So
Uh,
it's kind of grounds you,
mm,
because being in a band, a successful band, there are all kinds of temptations come your way. And I haven't resisted those temptations in the past, but it just keeps me grounded.
yeah. It's a bit of discipline, isn't it? It's like a bit of
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
willpower, self-discipline. I mean, not to the same extent you, but when I finished playing football when I was about early 40s, and I was looking
Right.
for something else to do, or my missus was
Yeah.
looking for something else for me to do, and signed me up to boxing. And it's just
Right.
amazing the difference. I've boxed for 13 years now, whatever it is,
Fantastic.
and it's
That's
just
a great discipline.
yeah, just those times that you might be out and about and something kicks off or whatever, and the
Yeah.
redness isn't there anymore. You watch much
Yeah.
more in control of the situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But also, uh, to be a musician, you need discipline.
Mm,
Because some guys think, "Oh, right, I can be a musician, I can do whatever I want." No, you've got to, you need the discipline to compose, to write, to be at a place at a certain time. You need also the discipline to be able to work with other people. So it teaches you a lot.
yeah, it
I
does.
know discipline sounds like a dirty word, but it's actually so necessary.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, the older I get, the more that's become. I've become aware of that. It's got to
Yeah.
be said. And I mean, for you, you talked about the broken bones from the karate, but like you said, you've been a full-time musician for over 50 years now. What do you think wins on the scales? Broken body parts from rock and roll or from martial arts?
Tough martial arts. Yeah.
Okay, all right, all right. Now, I've got to say, the Stranglers, I read, I knew a lot of the songs, and I did some reading for this, and I was looking at when you came through, and you came through at the same time, or probably even slightly earlier than like the Pistols and Susie Sue and those, but you got lumped in with them. But I never felt that you were really part of that, because while they were still trying to figure out how to play three chords, the Stranglers, all of you guys had musical backgrounds, and without sounding music snob about it, actually knew what you were doing.
Yeah. Initially, I identified with what was happening at the same time around us, because the Sex Pistols were coming to see us, Chrissie Hynde was coming to see us, Joe Strummer was in a band called the 101ers before he started The Clash. All these bands were coming to see us because we were just about a year ahead of them. So they were coming to see us in the pubs. So eventually, all these bands that you've mentioned, we were all on the same circuit.
Mm,
And we were dressing more or less similarly, and we were all hanging out in the same pubs. So we were kind of the vanguard of that, and I identified with that. It was a broad church at the time, But then it got a bit more fundamentalist or orthodox, and rules were being created. Well, you can't have a keyboard in a band, in a punk band, and it has to be at 5,000 miles an hour. And suddenly, it kind of there was a separation. We were much more successful than all those bands initially. So there was a kind of, and then there was a big punch up between me and the bass player from the Clash, Paul, and it was public. It was in front of a lot of journalists and everything. So there was a polarization, and the Stranglers were suddenly outsiders, and it actually suited me fine to be an outsider because we didn't have to follow any script. So we could try and explore all the musical directions that appealed to us. So
Yeah.
that gave us freedom.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's funny, isn't it, how those rules come about? Because I thought punk
Yeah.
was all about anarchy, but all of a sudden you can't have keyboards in a band.
Yeah, yeah. So fuck them all.
Yeah, fuck them all and fucking no regrets. Indeed, indeed. In terms of your bass playing, you're a very influential bass player, and a lot of people, a lot of bass players talk about you and your style and things. I know you were classically trained as a classical guitarist beforehand. Do you think that played into your bass playing style?
Well, it must do because I think you get an appreciation of melody and runs, arpeggios, and everything. So any extra string to one's bow is useful because it expands your palette, your creative palette. So, I mean, I'm always suspicious of people saying, "Oh, I don't like that kind of music," or "I like that kind of music." But because if you like music, it's all styles of music will have something which will resonate with you, whether it's jazz or rap or whatever. I like to keep an open mind about all styles of music because there must be something within each style of music which appeals, which will touch you.
Yeah, well, it reminds me of that Steve Earle quote. There's only two types of music: good music and bad music.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, if, we talked about Lemmy at the start of this chat, but I mean, Lemmy was another bass player who played his bass like he'd play a guitar. I mean, do you see similarities in your guys' styles?
I never thought of that actually, to be honest.
Yeah, he's very much a rock and more sort of 50s rock and roll style player, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
great. Really, yeah, really liked the bloke.
yeah, yeah. And in terms of writing, how much writing are you doing these days, and how much of it is for the Stranglers?
Right. I've collected over 450 pieces at the moment.
Mm,
I need some time for reflection and come back off touring. When that's over, when the touring's finished for a while, I'll have time to think and listen back to a lot of these ideas, see if they were shit at the time or not.
yeah,
But I can't write on the road. So, when I'm touring, and when I'm not, then I can collect my thoughts.
yeah. Well, I mean, famously, you and Hugh used to maybe not necessarily write for each other, but you would write and figure out who it suited best. Now that
Yeah,
you don't have that dynamic in the band, when you
well,
are
we
writing,
do. We do have that because Baz, our guitarist, has been in the band for 25 years, which is much longer than Hugh was in the band, to be honest. And we do bounce off each other. So, for instance, well, in about 2 weeks' time before we come over to you
Mm,
guys, Baz and I will spend a few days together at my house here in France, and we'll throw ideas at each other. You know,
yeah.
that's
So
it's how I enjoy writing,
yeah,
really.
yeah, sweet. So I mean, so the way that you used to write when with Hugh, that hasn't
Yeah,
changed at all. In fact, it's just evolved. I mean, because Baz
yeah,
obviously, like you say, been in the band for so long.
yeah. That's right. Yeah.
When do you have a sort of time in your head as to when you might be able to turn something around and get some new music out?
I think at the end of this year we're going to take a while away from
Hmm.
touring. Although I mean, we live for playing. I mean, I love playing. It's just the traveling I hate, especially coming to New Zealand, 27-hour flight.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know who booked that for you, but you need to have a word. You need to go to Japan and then a couple of other Asian places, then Australia, and break it up. Be your
Yeah,
last.
I love going to Japan as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, landing in New Zealand, we've got we've been to New Zealand a few times now. In fact, the first time we went to Australia, we were banned from New Zealand. The government banned us.
What had you done?
Nothing, nothing.
So, a face like a choir boy.
Yeah, butter wouldn't melt.
I've got to ask you too. I mean, as I mentioned, it's 50 Years in Black is the name of the anniversary tour. You're playing at the Power Station, Meow Nui, and the Christchurch Town Hall, 3 gigs in New Zealand before you go to Australia.
Yeah.
You got 50 years of tunes. How do you build a set list?
I don't know how the fuck do I. We change it every night.
Yeah.
Not drastically, but we do change it every night. Yeah, because we have to be interested in it as well. You know, there's nothing worse for an audience seeing a band or an artist going through the motions. So sometimes when you no longer feel for a piece of music, we just drop it.
Mm.
Then you rediscover it later.
Yeah, I've often wondered that. I mean, I play in a band, but I don't do the sort of tours that you guys do, right? So I'm not having to go out there and do it every night. So it's a different thing.
Right.
But I remember going and seeing Iron Maiden in Sydney, and I thought I'm going to go over. They're playing 2 nights. I'll go to both nights. I'll see 2 different
Yeah.
sets. No, they do a world tour. They play the same set every night of that entire tour. AC/DC are the same. And
Oh, really?
I just kind of, I don't understand. Well, not that I don't understand. I get why, because it's all to do with stage props and all that sort of
Yeah,
palaver.
exactly. Lights and yeah, because
Yeah,
otherwise they have to reprogram everything every
everything.
night. I get
But it must become a bit like punching the clock for the people on the stage
which I try to avoid.
at all costs.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I want to still be digging what I'm doing, you know?
yeah, you got to enjoy it, right? I
Yeah,
mean, yeah,
sure.
you're in music because you love music.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, first and foremost. I also wanted to ask you about influences. Obviously, I mentioned that you've influenced a lot of people, but in terms of your playing, we talked about the classical guitar playing as an influence potentially on your bass playing, but were there any bass players that you watched growing up, or that you heard that grabbed your ear, and that's where you decided to go with your craft?
Well, I didn't think I was going to be a bass player, to be honest. That just was accidental. But I mean, as a kid, yeah. I mean, Jack Bruce, John Entwistle, fantastic, you know,
Yeah, yeah, some of the best around.
really.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
to be mentioned in the same breath as them is, I take it as I'll take it.
Yeah. What about now? Is there anybody now that you know that maybe has come through that you've picked up on that you know is maybe a generation later than you that you've appreciated, or you've noticed stuff that they do that you've taken and added to your own repertoire?
No,
They're all learning from The Godfather.
yes, sir. But I'm still. I mean, I'm open. To be honest, I'm really open to anything. But you know, it's a challenge.
Yeah, yeah, mate, it's always a challenge. It's always a challenge continuing to evolve and learning
Yeah,
learn something new all the time.
absolutely.
I wanted to ask you too about you've been around the music scene for a long, long time. Is there a song that you haven't written that you wish you had?
Oh yeah, there's loads. There's loads of songs I hear, I've heard, and I think, shit, I wish I'd written that. Yeah, of course. You know, sort of um, envy, compositional envy.
And in terms of lyrical writing as well, where are you pulling those influences from? And is there anybody that you know is somebody that you look to for inspiration, lyric as a writer?
No, but having said that, there are some. I mean, when I was much younger, I was a great fan of the Doors,
Mm,
and I loved Jim Morrison's lyricism and poetry. Um, but putting it to music, no, I haven't really followed anyone's lyrical writing.
all right. Now, JJ, I
Not
like
consciously, anyway.
not consciously. Yeah, it all seeps in, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone steals something accidentally.